I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Recently, the largest business lobbying group pointed a finger at the Biden administration for keeping Americans at home instead of returning to work. A $300 per week federal jobless benefit is what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce says led up to April's dismal jobs report. You may remember it began over a year ago when President Trump signed the CARES Act. Then it provided Americans with $600 a week supplement. How long can this continue before we run out of money? Everywhere you look, companies are begging for employees. There were help wanted signs and billboards offering higher wages and benefits. But who wants to work when you can sit at home and binge watch reruns of Seinfeld and collect a check? I think it's time to hear from the historian in our group. For that, I turn to my better half, Tim Donner. Tim,
I don't know.
Okay, so is this lack of employment unprecedented? And do you counter Jen Psaki's claim that the $300 benefit is not the problem here?
Well, there's almost no level of unemployment that's unprecedented. The problem is, and Andrew's going to back me up on this because it's an economic principle, when you tax something, you get less of it. When you subsidize it, you get more of it. So this is simple human behavior one more time. There'll always be some who cheat the system. We just don't want to make it so easy. One of the companies that works for us, not Liberty Nation, but us personally, he told me recently when I said you didn't get some work done, he said, well, I can't get my old workers back. They're making too much on unemployment. So we brought in new workers that didn't know anything about our property. And this is the kind of thing that happens. Now, Joe Biden's trying to claim that it's not a problem. But if that's true, how come he dedicated a significant piece of his time at his last press conference saying, let me make it clear, if you don't try to seek work, you're not going to get unemployment. And then he said it's not a problem. But then he repeated it. So why would he repeat it if it's not a problem? Maybe to reassure Americans who think that some people are lazy off the public dole. Wouldn't be the first time.
Okay, Andrew, we're right in your lane.
Yeah, well, someone who studies data and trends for a living, when I heard Jen Psaki say that, the unemployment isn't doing anything, it isn't worsening the problem, she definitely made me want to sing "I Ain't No Circle Back Girl." That's just my joke for the day. But I study all the data. You look at the recent initial jobless claims that came to a fresh pandemic low of under 500,000. The recent job openings number right now, it climbed by 597,000 in March to I think April 123 million, and that's a 2-decade high. And if you ever want to see a real life example of what happens when the state distorts markets, you see it right now. You see, was it Duncan? Duncan just had an ad in Florida that said they're going to pay you a $50 weekly attendance bonus, a $100 sign-on bonus, pay time. Yes. $100 anniversary bonus. McDonald's just announced they're going to raise wages. Now, this is progressives like to say that businesses can just raise wages if they want to hire more labor. The problem is that the large companies like McDonald's can't afford to raise wages for labor. It's a small mom and pop, bakery, baked goods shop, or the small, computer repair shop, whatever the case. They're the ones who cannot afford to pay, a $20 hourly wage or these handsome benefits, or the like I already said, the $50, just to attend an interview. So it's completely insulting to anybody who didn't even study economics, who just sees it right what's going on in front of them. And one thing I like to point out is that a lot of people like to, poke fun at Americans by saying, they're lazy, they don't want to work, but they're looking at their own best interests. I recently reported on this whole data that everyone's starting to talk about. They're looking at their options. They can see, well, if I can just get a few $100, less or more per week with just sitting at home, I can use this time to, as you said, binge watch Seinfeld, or they could, study new language, they can work out, they can improve their health, all these things. So they're weighing their options, and I don't begrudge anybody who's staying at home and doing these things.
I do. I do. I live in a very rural area, and there is not one business that isn't suffering here because people make more money sitting at home doing nothing, smoking dope, drinking, binge watching TV. Nobody's showing up for shifts. And when they do, they can just go, well, I'll just go back on unemployment. And it's killing the small businesses in the rural areas. Mom and pops are really, really struggling. And I've seen several close in just my area that have been in business for 50, 60 years. So I am offended by people who sit on their tuchus and learn Spanish when they're never going to use it. Or, if they want to work out and get the hard body because they don't have to worry about going to work and getting, secretary butt or whatever they're getting. But it's ticking me off living here in Red State Central to see all of these businesses just struggle. And you pay people to stay home, nobody's going to show up.
I'll tell you what's going to make it even worse. The $15 minimum wage, that's going to cost so many jobs. It's typical leftist one-step thinking. People don't make enough money. Just force employers to pay them more, not realizing that the simple choice they're making without realizing it, you pay people more, you have less jobs. You force people to pay what they can't afford, they cut payroll, and they automate. So this whole push for a federal mandate on a $15 minimum wage, we're going to see a whole lot more of an issue with unemployment if that happens. To be sure, once unemployment benefits run out, you could have a confluence of, shall we say, unfortunate circumstances in the labor market.
Jeff, what's happening down in Texas? Is Netflix stock going up with Seinfeld reruns?
Well, first off, and you guys are going to give me heat on this, but who binges Seinfeld? I mean, why?
I do.
Out of all the shows that we've got on Netflix, Hulu, I mean,
it's not really bingeable.
No. I'm binging Game of Thrones. I'm binging all kinds of stuff, but not Seinfeld. But here's the thing. Here's kind of where I question this a little bit. I have no doubt that the unemployment benefits are contributing to this problem, and depending on where you live, it might be contributing a lot to the problem. But I don't know anybody who can live off of $300 per week. I mean, that's about $1,200 per month. I don't know a lot of people. I mean, that's barely covering rent for some people. So unless they're getting other benefits, and I've looked into that and I'm not seeing it yet, but that could be possible. But unless they're getting more money some other way, they're not living. So I do think that this is a huge contributor, but I don't think that this is the only reason why people aren't going back to work. I think a lot of it may even have to do with the whole COVID hysteria, because there are still people in the media who are still trying to make people afraid to go outside of their homes or afraid to go to work or what have you. I mean, it's getting so bad that even Don Lemon was making sense on this when he said, go back and visit your family. If you've been vaccinated, you're fine. Even Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo are pushing back on this. So
I find that hard to believe, Jeff.
Oh, I promise you, Scouts Honor, like Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo were telling people to go visit their families. Don't have to worry about wearing masks if you've been vaccinated. Don Lemon was actually pretty emotional about it because he hasn't been able to see his mom because his mom is so afraid of visiting family, that even though she's been vaccinated, fully vaccinated. So if these people are still scared, I think that that's also contributing to the problem as well. And there are probably other factors also.
Okay,
Jeff, have you ever lived in a rural area? You can easily live on $1,200 a month.
Well, that's why I said
many rural areas across.
In rural areas, I buy that. In rural areas, I buy the whole unemployment thing. But I'm in Austin, Texas, and ain't nobody here living off $1,200 a month. So I do think it's contributing in more rural areas or areas where you can get away with it. But I think there are other factors. And plus, if you're living in a city like mine, which is liberal, people are more likely to be afraid of the coronavirus to go back to work. So I think it depends on where people are at.
I was just going to say there's an old expression from football which says you take what the defense gives you. And if the defense has given you unemployment enough that it makes sense to stay home, you might do it. And that's the whole problem with the federal welfare system to begin with? Is it helping the people that need to be helped? Yes. The problem is that human nature is such that people are going to cheat the system at such a rate that it becomes unsustainable. And the unemployment situation now is just another example of that.
All right, Andrew, economics correspondent, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I'd like to say Jeff is partially correct, not the Seinfeld bit, but when it talks about people staying home, I've read the surveys, and the surveys do show that some people are afraid of COVID-19, so that's one of the reasons why they're going to stay home. Others are saying, I have to look after my child, or I have to look after an aging relative because there's no other way to do it. But I've crunched some of the numbers. If you look at Florida, if you're earning a minimum wage, if you're an unskilled labor, if you're working behind the McDonald's counter, you'll be earning just a few dollars more than you would be sitting at home on unemployment. So, Jeff is partially correct on that, but the data also suggests that people are staying home because they can get by enough on the jobless benefits from Uncle Sam.
Well, if the feds do nothing, the benefits expire in September. The question is, can we wait that long? The U.S. Chamber of Commerce says no, but let's see how successful their lobbying efforts will be. Thanks so much, panel. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in, and remember to surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $29.99 for the entire year. This has been a production of libertynation.com, conservative news where truth matters.